Well, welcome everyone. It's Tuesday, and we want to welcome you to the Accelerate Your Consulting live stream. I have my friend and colleague here with me, Chris Ediger. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm not sure it's a good or bad thing when your week feels like it's going by really quickly. That usually means things are a little busy right now.
Yeah.
But good week so far.
Well, good. I definitely prefer a fast week rather than a slow week, I think. So
I still can't believe it's October. I'm still sitting here going, I double checked the calendar today because it's halfway through October and it doesn't feel like it should be, but I'm ready for 2020 to turn a corner. So I'm happy.
Yeah, it's definitely getting to be fall, or it is fall, but I was looking at our clothes we picked out. Looks kind of fallish. So now I know we were just talking about this earlier. I know you're a big movie buff. So are you okay with theaters have been, being shut down? I know they're opening now again, but are you?
I tell you what, we had a good run for about 3 weeks. We're one of those couples that have the subscription, so we go to AMC's around here, and so we can go see as many movies as we want to, basically. And as soon as they opened back up in mid-August, we were there a lot. I think I watched like 6 or 7 movies in the span of 3 weeks. And then Tenet, the Christopher Nolan movie, didn't do quite as well as they had hoped.
Yeah.
And there's been like no movies now. So we actually canceled our subscription until they could get the new releases out. So it was good for a little while. We felt safe. I mean, we were basically the only ones in the theater. I mean, I don't know how many, I saw 3 movies, I think, that we were the only ones in the entire theater.
Really?
So
I'm shocked. I would think some people would have been so cooped up they would have just been ready to come.
I know. So I think the biggest movie, Tenet, was the most packed, and there was maybe 25 people there. It wasn't that big. So I miss it. I'm ready for him to come back. Hopefully next year.
Well, hopefully for your sake you can. I like to watch a movie in bed. That's my cup of tea. It's a movie in bed. I'm too lazy to go to the theater.
I have an emergency movie candy in my glove box. So that's how just so that if I want to go to a movie on the whim, I've got the candy ready and handy. So
wow. I do remember this. You have some sort of a spreadsheet or something, don't you, that you use to rank movies and things?
I do. I haven't checked it lately to see what numbers I'm up to, but yeah, there's an app called Letterboxd that if you go to Chris Ediger on Instagram, just go to my links. It's in there. You can see all the movies that I watch, and I see about 150, 160 movies a year. Oh, wow. Not all of them at the theater, but yeah, we watch a lot of movies, so it's fun.
Well, that is pretty cool. It's fun. Well, we're here for other things than just chit chat, but I always do love to catch up with you. So for those of you who are maybe new to us, if you haven't joined before, I am Tracy Rader here at Giant. I'm the Director of Implementation, and Chris is our Director of Partners. And Chris is just an expert when it comes to consulting. He is a consultant himself, but he also works with all of our consultants around the world and gives them all kinds of resources and support that they need in order to go out and do their jobs really well. So that is why he is the expert on this show and not me. And I love to learn from him as well as you do, I'm sure all of you watching. So thanks for joining us. If you're coming in from LinkedIn or from Facebook, we always love to have you. If you're coming in from our platform, thank you for joining us. And if those of you who are listening are like, what is she talking about? Well, we're talking about Giant has its own platform that we live stream from, and you can get free access to it. Just go to giant.tv/free account. So that's my word, and I'm sticking to it, Chris. So
yeah, I love it. And I would say this, I think this is your Twitter handle, right? Is that right?
Uh-huh.
So if those of you that want to follow Tracy, just go to Twitter. I'm an Instagram man. That usually is where I'm hanging out. So you can find me at Chris Ediger on Instagram. We would love to interact with you offline. Really glad that you've chosen to be with us today. And I'm excited about today. You know, we try to every once in a while sprinkle in some of our tools. We have about 70 leadership tools that we use all over the world with teams. And this is a big one for us. And in fact, I think we were talking beforehand, some of the other Ascend live streams that we have on the platform, we did a series on this tool with our CEO and president over the last month or so. So I would encourage you to go back and look at those, get a free account. Again, giant.tv/free account. And then just scroll to the bottom of the page. You can see all of the on-demand recordings. You can go into way more detail than we're going to be able to go into in a span of 20 or 30 minutes today. But I'm excited about this because this has been an impactful tool. And I would encourage you as we get going, if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop those in. If you're on Giant, just drop them into the chat window to the right of the video. If you're on LinkedIn or Facebook, just feel free to drop it in as a comment into the video. Tracy will be hanging out in the chat and helping out, answering any questions. And then we will pause here in a little bit and address any questions live that you might have. But I want to introduce you to a tool. And again, this is one of about 70 tools that Giant utilizes in the consulting and the coaching that we do with organizations literally all over the globe. And it's a tool called Maximizing Team Performance. And Maximizing Team Performance is our instrument to be able to show the areas that we found after decades of working with leaders in teams and organizations, the areas that most healthy, high-performing teams excel in. It's the areas of communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity. And we'll get into what each one of those mean. But what's really interesting to me, especially in my work with individually with teams and organizations, I'll tell you where most leaders like to start. They like to start at the bottom. Not uncommon at all for a new leader, a new team that I'm working with, especially a leader, to come in and from the get-go say, hey, I just care about alignment and execution. In other words, I want my team to know what I want them to do, and I want them to do it. I want them to be aligned with what I intend for us to be doing, and then I want them to actually just go out there and do it. And those are important things. I would say they're on the screen for a reason. You can't be a healthy, high productive team if you haven't figured out how to be all on the same page and moving and executing well in that direction. But there's a reason that they're toward the bottom. They're the reason that they're number 3 and number 4 on the list. Because when we're working with organizations, what we know is you have to start with healthy, good, effective communication. And that has to be built upon a foundation of healthy relationships. And when you start there and you start to build into that, that's when you get to a place when you can talk about being aligned and executing in capacity, so that this is a flywheel, right? You want this moving more and more expediently so that you can excel in what you're doing. So now we've got a concept. This is not going to be new if you've been on these live streams before, but we talk about what it takes to be an invincible team. And what we mean by that is we mean a team that can excel in all 5 categories. It's not enough to just be a team that executes. It's not enough to just be a team that values relationship or who's worked hard on communication. The healthiest and most high-performing teams, those that we would give the moniker of being an invincible team, really are ones that have figured out how to excel in every one of those areas. Invincible teams understand the language. These words, communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity, mean something. Of course, we have language and tools that we use all the time that talk about 5 voices and gears and things like that. And it's really important that everybody understands that they know what each other are talking about. I was working with a manufacturing company in Alabama a couple of years ago. And it was really interesting because one of the leaders said to me, he said, Chris, if you came into my office and you were just to listen in on a phone call between this manufacturing plant and then another one, let's say in Texas, he said a lot of the language and the words that we're using would sound like gibberish to you. They'd almost sound like we're talking a foreign language, but we understand each other. We understand the words and the phrases, and because it's such a lifeblood of the language that we use in a manufacturing setting, that is really important for us to excel. He said what Giant has done is it's brought that same common language to our people development, so that when I pick up the phone to talk to another plant manager in Texas, we have a language now that we can use to be able to help our teams to excel and to be as healthy as possible. That's powerful, right? It's a team that commits to self-awareness, to say, we understand where we're at. If I were to go to any of your clients and I were to ask them, how are you doing with communication, relationships, alignment, execution, and capacity? Could they tell you? Could they tell me? Is it a known quantity? Because a lot of times when you're just talking to leaders, especially, Leaders are biased. Leaders have some inherent bias, and sometimes it's their own preferences. Sometimes they are out of touch with the reality of the team. And just because the leader says it's something that needs to be worked on isn't necessarily right. And so what winds up happening is, without real data around these kind of metrics, you wind up just doing your best and hoping that something sticks. You think there's an issue in a certain area, and so you start to work on that area, even though you don't necessarily have any metrics or data around it. And Bronson Taylor, our CEO, says this well, and it's not his quote, it's somebody else, but he says, if we're going to use opinions, let's use mine. If we're going to use data, let's use data. And I think it's really important for a team to understand, to be self-aware enough to know where they're excelling and where they're hurting, so that they can actually move the needle. And then to be able to connect that awareness to action. It's not enough just to know that we're hurting in communication. You want to actually move the needle. You want that score to improve. You want that area to grow and to get healthier. And healthy teams and visible teams have a process for being able to grow. So as we talk about these 5 areas, these are the questions that we ask teams all the time that help us to be able to gauge where they're at, where they need help, and how we can help them excel. Communication. Does everybody on your team have communication skills and habits that are healthy and effective? Relationships. Does everybody have the necessary trust? Do they have psychological safety? We're going to come back to that one in a minute, to fully support and challenge one another. Alignment. Does everybody know what the vision of the organization is, how they contribute to it, and what is expected of them every day? I know lots of companies that have mission statements or vision statements, or maybe, organizational or team goals, but there's very few teams that can connect the dots all the way down to the individual within the team, so that they know that when I do my job on a daily basis, this is how it's contributing to what the team is trying to do and what we say that we're about as an organization. And then to be able to show up every day and be able to execute on that. That's really important to do. And then execution. Does everybody maximize their potential and work on the correct things in the right order to be able to help the organization reach its goals? And then lastly, capacity. Are you resourced appropriately in terms of skills, capital, and people to achieve your goals? Do you have what you need? Or is there a constraint somewhere in the process that's holding you back from excelling? Now, when we look at those 5, there's a reason that we've built them in the order that we have, because we would say that you have to have a foundation of healthy communication. If people don't know how to communicate authentically and clearly, if they don't understand what it's like to be on the other side of them, if they don't understand the other people and the other voices that are at the table, there's no way to be able to create a cohesive, collaborative team environment where everybody excels. And that may sound like a soft thing, right? To talk about, well, we want a team where everybody's able to be their best. And that absolutely is a very altruistic thing, but it's more than that. Because when you have a team that allows every individual team member to show up and to contribute fully, by definition, that means that the team is at its best. If everybody's excelling, that means the team is excelling. So it's really important to have those communication habits and skills as a foundation. It has to be built on healthy relationships. Your team needs to be able to show up and feel like they can be fully who they are without any kind of fear of reprimand. They need to be able to challenge ideas, even if the ideas are being spoken by the leader of the team or by the most vocal person at the table. You need them to be able to add facets into perspectives that nobody else in the team maybe are thinking through. And that only comes through healthy relationships. And then it's really important for everybody to be on the same page. It does no good to be a highly executing team if everybody's running in different directions, right? Everybody has to know where we're headed and how my role and my dailiness actually contributes to what we're trying to do as a team or organization. And then I can execute, and only then. And then to remove any kind of capacity constraints that are in place. When you're able to do those and do those effectively, they build on top of one another. Now, we didn't just merely make that up. That comes from a lot of data and research and findings from our own exposure and experience with teams that we've worked with over the last 2 decades. But it's interesting in that it's been validated. It's been validated by other research that's come out. Chief among those, Google came out with a study. And if you haven't looked into Project Aristotle, I would encourage you to do that. Just Google Project Aristotle and you'll get everything you ever wanted to know about it. It was actually Google's own study that they did years back, in the last 5 years or so, because they were trying to identify what makes certain teams high performing and excellent and other teams not. How do we find the common denominators between all of the teams that are executing and performing at a high level? And then how do we replicate that so that every individual, every team in the organization can become a healthy, high-performing team? One of the things that they found, and these are actually the 5 areas, the 5 key components that they found on all of those highly effective teams, psychological safety was at the top. And I think that's important to note. In fact, there's a quote in the Project Aristotle report that you'll see that basically says, out of all of the contributing factors, the one that was by far the most important was psychological safety. In teams where there was psychological safety, and again, that's where team members can show up, feel free to take risk, be vulnerable in front of each other in a way that doesn't fear any kind of reprimand, or it's not going to hurt their career opportunities or anything like that. When they're able to do that, those are the teams that have higher retention, they have more collaboration, they have more innovation, they have higher performance. The bottom line is affected most significantly on that. And so for us, what we found, high-performing teams need to be able to trust and bring the best out in each other. And what's interesting is Google's actually one of our clients now. And the main reason, one of the big reasons why they hired us is because our work with the Invincible Teams assessment that we've talked about so closely maps with their own findings in the Project Aristotle research that they did. So as we do that, here's why this is so important. If I'm working with an individual team of 5 people, it's really important that I help those 5 people to be able to excel together in these 5 areas. Because what happens is at the organizational level, the organization, the health of the organization, the performance of the organization is only going to be as good as the health and the performance of the teams within the organization. It looks something like this. What winds up happening is it does no good or little to no good to have a team way down here at the bottom that's excelling, that's maybe at a 96 to 100 out of 100 scale, that they're just killing it when it comes to health and high performing in all of those areas. It does no good if there's a team over here next to them down the line that is really suffering. And so the organization as a total is only as good as the compilation or of all of the health and the high performing factors within the organization. So it's really important not just to know how the organization's doing, it's really important to know how are every single team within the organization doing in each one of these key metrics. And then how do you actually go out there and affect change, actually move the needle so that the areas that you're maybe not doing as well in, you can actually affect. Now, our way that we've done this, and again, this isn't new if you've been on these calls, our way and our solution for being able to affect that change is our Invincible operating system. That comprises of 3 things. It's the assessment. This is that Invincible Teams assessment. It's an 80-question assessment that's done anonymously for every individual within the organization. And then the scores are compiled in a way that the anonymity is protected. There's no way for me to know what John scored or the score he gave on a particular question or a category. We actually take all of the scores from John's team and we show the team score. And then we show how all of the teams together collectively come up with an organizational score. And we can drill down into each one of these areas and see individual scores on how well, based on the data, on what the people are telling us, how healthy and high performing they are in each one of those areas. And then we can also, as an organization, look almost as a dashboard to see the different teams. So you can see the marketing team is excelling in communication, but the sales team is actually hurting in that area. What is the marketing team doing that the sales team can learn from? So it becomes very collaborative toward this overall goal to be able to be healthy. And then we use a set of 70 leadership tools and content to be able to help them improve in those different areas. And we do that through a process. So as we're working with organizations, again, this is our secret sauce. Like, this is what we do with every organization that we work with, is we come in, we assess reality. We look at the real data of where they're excelling and where they're not. We then use the toolkit to be able to come in and help shore up the areas that they are scoring the worst in. And we do that through a rhythm. We do that through weekly leadership training and curriculum. We do that through monthly team exercises. We do that through monthly leadership coaching. We come in every quarter and reevaluate and ask the same questions of the same people so that we can compare and contrast where we were 3 months ago compared to where we are now, and see if we're moving the needle or where we need to adjust. And then we come in and do an annual people summit to be able to continue to lay out a roadmap for how the company continue to excel, get healthy, and unlock the potential of their people. And as we do that, it's all foundational within that maximizing team performance tool. So I'm going to pull Tracy back in. I would love to hear any questions you have on any of that and the tool itself, or maybe how Giant goes about the work that we do to be able to help organizations, teams excel in each one of those areas. Tracy?
Yeah, so there is a question, and I thought I had it pulled up here, but it's the fact that this gentleman says, Brad says, that his boss doesn't seem to focus on the relationship communication because they're so busy on execution, and it feels like that boss doesn't see it as important. How do I convince her that it is?
Yeah. So again, I would encourage you to do something like the assessment that we have on the platform. You can go through an invincible trial. It's 14-day trial. If you've been connected to Giant through one of our consultants, it's a little bit longer than that. And you can actually go in there and add all your team members and actually do hard data. I mean, again, I can tell you a number of times that I've sat down with leaders who didn't think that there was a whole lot of need, and the data showed otherwise. And it's hard to argue with facts, right? Where all of a sudden you're showing, hey, the team is actually hurting in some of these other areas. What I know is that when a team focuses solely on alignment and execution to the detriment of some of those earlier ones, communication and relationships, it's only a short-lived process. You're going to burn your people out. You're probably going to have above average, or below average retention rates where you're losing people to better companies that are healthier. And you're not going to be able to sustain even short-term success. It may work for a little bit, but it's really a mirage. It's not something that it works over the long haul. When your teams can communicate well and it's built upon a bedrock of healthy psychological safety and relationships, then the hard work, and it takes a lot of work to get aligned and to execute well. And that you don't want to waste that hard work on a shaky foundation. It would be like building a really fancy house and picking out beautiful countertops only to have the foundation erode and the whole house collapses. You don't want that. Make sure you build a healthy foundation before you start picking out kitchen cabinets. So
yeah, and I really like what you said at the beginning about how most managers or those leaders we're biased, right? So you can't see clearly. And I love the data aspect of this. This is the hard data that you can't argue with.
Yeah, it is what people want. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of times there's a fear of consultants and of consulting because I don't know if it's like we're snake oil salesmen or something, like we're coming in trying to tell them they have a problem they really don't have so that they can be dependent on us. Like, that's not consulting. That's not healthy. That's not what Giant does. We come in to be able to say, this is where you're at. We actually have instruments to be able to help you to be able to see where you need to improve. We have tools to actually help you improve in those areas. And then we have a proven process to be able to sustain that and scale that and to be able to show ROI, which is what everybody wants. If you're a consultant and a coach, I guarantee, especially in the leadership arena, that is the hardest thing to do, is to be able to show the worth of the time, energy, and expense of the work that they're putting in, employing you to do that. You need to go in to be able to show them the work that you're putting in, the money you're investing in me and the system is actually making a difference. If you can't do that, your relationship with them is not going to last for very long. And if you're not around for very long, you're not really going to be able to affect true change. So again, if you have questions on how to do that, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions after this. My email is chris@giantworldwide.com. Just email me. I'm happy to connect you in and walk you through that trial process or connect you to one of our consultants if you want. And so you can actually see what that's like and hopefully be able to use that data to be able to show your supervisor otherwise that there really is a need to be able to invest in some of these other areas.
Yeah, and speaking of ROI, just a couple of streams ago, Chris covered, how to show ROI, and it was excellent. So go back to that archived live stream, and you can watch that. That's on our platform on the Ascend page. So
yeah, I'm so thankful that what Giant does is not up to me. It's not up to my expertise to somehow, to be able to figure out where everybody's hurting in a subjective way and actually go in and come up with creative solutions that are kind of born out of nowhere. And then to be able to repeat that and to make it sustainable so that whenever they stop paying me and I leave, that it's not all for naught. That's just not the way we do it. I know a lot of people do it that way. We're so grounded in data and tools, and it makes it easier for you as a consultant to be able to go in and have this wealth of research and data and instruments and tools to actually help you to be able to affect change, which is what everybody wants. And the more impact you bring, the longer you're going to work with with the organization, and you're going to be important, which is good for you and it's good for them.
Great. One more question. I know we probably need to go soon, but someone is asking, where do we get this assessment so that I can use it in my consulting?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, if you are a consultant and you're not tied into Giant and what Giant is doing for consultants and coaches, you at least need to have a conversation with us to see if it would be a good fit or not. The easiest way to do that is to go to the website that's on the screen right now, giantworldwide.com/accelerate. And you can read all about it and then click that blue button, schedule info call. That'll put you in touch with somebody from our team. Again, just have a conversation. It's not a heavy sales pitch or anything. We don't want you to engage with Giant if that's not the right fit, but we certainly want to show you how we might be able to help. I would encourage you to do that. The other way is to go to the link that Tracy actually mentioned earlier, which is giant.tv/free account. If you go to that right now, that's on the screen, giant.tv/free account, you can create a free account on our Ascend platform. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos and assessments and guided learning pathways and ebooks and resources and live streams like this one and recorded live streams that you can watch on demand, all for free, always free. And I would encourage you to do that. But when you're on there, you'll notice as soon as you log in, there's a button at the top that says get your free 5 Voices Bootcamp. That's the easiest way to get in to get the trial that we're talking about. Just click that button, read about it, and then start your free trial. That'll help you to go through. You can add people, and then everybody in the organization go through and take that assessment. And then if you want some help with a consultant to come in and actually walk through those results with you, just let us know, and we're happy to do that. But that'll at least give you the ability to kind of see what your clients would be experiencing if they were to engage with Giant through you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this has been super helpful. Any last words, Chris, before we?
No, again, just join us again next week. We're here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And next week, I'm excited. We are going to have a special guest, Bronson Taylor, who's our CEO, is going to be joining us to talk through this invincible process. So this right here is what we do with organizations. If you're curious of what that looks like, come, and he's going to be talking about what that looks like, how you can engage with that, how it could help you in different ways. And we encourage you to come in and join us. That's next Tuesday at 2 p.m. on the 20th. And again, there's multiple ways that you can engage. We would encourage you to sign up for a free account so you can watch this and other live streams directly on the platform. That's simply because you can also get the on-demand recordings. You can get all the other videos and pathways and resources for free as a part of it. If you're viewing this on Facebook or LinkedIn, we do live stream to those platforms as well. So you're welcome to just follow us on either one of those platforms, and we'll be alerted whenever we do go live. But it will be next Tuesday, October 20th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Hope you're able to join us for that.
Yeah, you don't want to miss Bronson Taylor. He's a big ball of leadership, energy, and vision. He's really amazing. So you'll want to be sure and join us for that. Well, thank you, Chris. We will see you next week, same time, same live stream channel.
It's great. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.